Eventually I want to change the cradle out on the Polarex so that I can put the 8-inch Zeiss onto it instead. And I found that the bolts holding the cradle on have been Loctited in. I managed to get one free, but the others are really, really tight. So the previous owners had had a go at this as well. I can see some burring on the threads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to torch this, give it a bit of heat, and see if we can't loosen them off. To try and get a bit more purchase on the threads, on the screws rather, I've made this piece of steel, flat steel, like a supersized screwdriver. I've cut this out of a piece of an old mower blade, so it's very hard, and hopefully this will allow me to put a fair bit of pressure on the screw and get it out. This is why these were so difficult to get out. You can see this one in particular has got a fair old bit of corrosion on it. I don't know that I would use heat on a small amount, so 5-inch or 4-inch, but the thermal mass of this thing is so enormous, I think you'd be pretty safe. Anyhow, that's all the screws out now. I'm going to take the cradle back to Brisbane and clean it up there. I've got some leather coming, which I'm going to replace the felt, which is completely gone on this pretty much. The only bit that's in halfway decent nick is this one here. But even this, you can see it's got I guess it's a little bit of paint from the previous OTA finish on there. So I really want to know what's happened to this thing in its career. It seems like it sat neglected for some time, maybe not out in the elements, but somewhere where it was damp. Might have been a bit of electrolysis going on, as I said before. Who knows? Hopefully we'll find out. Again, best laid plans of mice and men go awry, so that cradle is not coming off. And giving it a few experimental taps with a hammer on a block of wood, I actually managed to dislodge the driving for the declination, the driving wheel for the declination axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this now. I needed to do that anyhow to get at the grub screws on the deck axis worm wheel, because that was just spinning. So it's no big deal. But yeah. We'll get there. So I needed to unscrew this locking arm just here, so I could lift the clutch and the drive assembly out of the housing, and I don't know whether that's stuck in there as well. No, we can take this washer out as well. Have to unscrew these guys first, I guess. Documenting everything so that I can put it all back together again. At least that's the theory. Good. What else have we got down here? I reckon that's the problem there. I reckon I'm going to have to tap those out. Okay, good stuff. Finally, I managed to get the cradle off of the axis, and it was indeed these extra little bit of bits of, I think they're mild steel. They're tapered, and they fit in these two holes. So I don't fully understand why there is this additional fixing onto the mount. I suspect it's to provide a really stiff join between the two of them. So the chamfered nature of these things, they're a pretty good, really nice fit. The chamfered nature of these suggests to me that They're designed to really lock the cradle onto the mount and minimise any movement there. Before I get down to spraying and patching up the finish on this, I'm just going to go over it and remove as much of the dirt as I can with some swabs and a little bit of spray and wipe. So I'm just going to try and lift that nasty brown residue, which is probably from years of the scope just sitting maybe upright actually, because it's kind of collected quite strongly in these little cracks, and it's coming away with a bit of persuasion, because I don't want that there when I'm doing the refinishing, because it'll just make for a really poor texture and the paint will just flake away after a bit. So get rid of all that. A bit of elbow grease required, I think. These are the original pads on the inside of the Polar Axis Cradle. So the idea was that these things would protect the scope when it was clamped in place, but also provide a bit of friction and to stop it sliding within the cradle. So over the years, the pads have become very compressed, and the adhesive on their back has become this kind of like chalky mess. And both these guys peeled away pretty much straight away from the cradle. There were two strip pads as well, which I had to chisel out a little bit. I've used these as a template to mark up this piece of cow's leather that is stained green. Not quite the same green, but it's not a bad match. You can get green baize, self-adhesive baize, and I've used that in the past, but I've not actually been very impressed with it. Over time, it tends to creep. Those of you who remember the Unitron 152, so 4-inch Unitron that I restored about 10 years ago, there was a real problem with that on the main tube creeping. So I'm hoping that this green leather, which is actually, it's quite nice stuff. It's got a fair bit of bend in it, a bit of flexibility. I'm hoping this will do a better job than the self-adhesive baize that you can get in craft stores. The cradle is being a real problem to get a decent finish on. I've been struggling with this for quite a few days now, and I'll do a coat, and then suddenly in just a few places it'll crackle up, almost like it's crackle finish paint. And I've sanded these areas down and then repainted them, and the same thing's happened again, and I'm just at my wit's end with this. So I was patching a small hole or a small divot in the top here, and I sanded it back, and I think I know why I'm having these problems in just a couple of places. So if you look here, there are actually multiple layers of paint, and they're different paints on the cradle. So I think this has been partially stripped at some point, and it's been repainted with a different, not particularly compatible paint. And as a result of that, I'm getting all these problems. My approach the entire time is to keep as much of the finish original as possible, but it's just not been possible here. So what I've been doing is I've been going back as far as I can, almost down to bare metal in the areas which have been problematic, and hopefully I've found them all now, and I'll be able to get a decent finish. There's a bit of a message here. At the end of the day, what are you doing? You're trying to refinish a surface which is damaged and doesn't look quite right. Do you need to have an automotive quality finish? No, it's a telescope. You're going to be using it at night. The thing is, of course, that even though you're using it at night, you'll know there'll be these areas which are not quite right. I spent a lot of time on the scope restoration. I guess I'm about 75% of the way through now. There's an opportunity cost with that as well. So I guess I'm probably in the region of maybe 300, 400 hours on it. It's time I could have spent with my friends. It's time I could have spent, maybe doing house maintenance and stuff like that. I still, I wouldn't take it back, but it's good to have, I guess, a benchmark to which you want to do the restoration for. It's very easy to fall down the rabbit hole of getting everything absolutely right. So I'm going to do this bit of patching up on these two areas, and then I'm going to call this good and go on to the next step of the cradle restoration, which will be replacement of the padding. I finally got the cradle spray to a condition that I'm happy with, and I've clear coated it as well. So to finish it off, I've glued in those leather pieces that I cut using a special silicone-based glue called E6000, which you can get online or from Bunnings. So this is a very strong adhesive, and it really grips straight away. But it also has very good elasticity as well. So I'm hoping that this will make a really nice fix for keeping those pants in place with the weight of the OTA there. That's pretty much it now. The only thing we've got left to fix up is the rings for the OTA, and then we can assemble the entire thing and have our first light.